The brainstem is consists of three portions. From below, if we see, this is the lowermost part, which is called as the medulla oblongata, followed by pons, and then the midbrain. The midbrain is the portion which connects the brainstem with the higher center, that is the cerebrum. The entire brainstem is called as the hindbrain. Now let us see how it is continuous above and below. If we look into the brainstem, below we can see that inferiorly it is continuous with the spinal cord. Superiorly, when we see superiorly, they are continuous with structures which are forming the forebrain. Those structures are the thalamus, hypothalamus, cerebral hemispheres. Okay. So and posteriorly, so superiorly we can see it is continuous with structures forming the forebrain. Those are the thalamus, hypothalamus, and the cerebral hemispheres. Inferiorly, we had seen that it was continuous with the structure which is the spinal cord. And look into the posterior aspect. If you see this picture, this is a ventral view of the brainstem. Posteriorly, you'll be able to appreciate the cerebellum. So posterior in relation to the brainstem is the cerebellum, and the brainstem is connected to the cerebellum via three peduncles. Those are the superior, middle, and the inferior peduncles. The superior peduncle connects the midbrain to the cerebellum. The middle cerebellar peduncle connects the pons with the cerebellum, and finally the inferior cerebellar peduncles will connect the medulla part with the cerebellum. If you look into the location of the brainstem is located intracranially. If you want to see the relation, it is related to the posterior cranial fossa onto the ventral surface of the brainstem will be lying over the region of the clivus. Now, externally, brainstem, the ventral view will be different from the dorsal view. The first picture is showing the ventral view of the brainstem. So as I've told you, the three different regions will be distinctly appreciable on the ventral aspect of the brainstem. So on the superiormost part, this midbrain, you can see this is the first part, and this is separated clearly through the crus cerebri. These are the crus cerebri portions of the midbrain, also called as the cerebral peduncle of the midbrain, which separates it from the pons. So this is the junction where the midbrain is separated from the pons. If you look into the ventral aspect of the pons, you will clearly see a sulcus over here, which is called as a basilar sulcus. And on both the sides of which you will find the transversely running fibers. And at the junction here over, you will have the middle cerebellar peduncle through which the pons will be connected to the cerebellum. Now, this is a lower margin of the pons, which is clearly demarcating the region of junction between the pons and the medulla. So this is a ponto-medullary junction. The medulla is, you can see this is more of a tubular kind of a structure, and it will have an upper part and a lower part. The lower part is called as a closed part. The upper part is the open part. And then you see certain other structures. These are the two swellings that we are now well versed with, because we had done the corticospinal tract. So these were the two tracts, pyramidal tracts that were running. So these swellings are called as the pyramid. So by looking into the pyramid and looking into these all structures, we can come to know that this is a ventral aspect of the brainstem. The brainstem on the dorsal aspect will appear somewhat like this. So posteriorly, the pons region and the upper part of the medulla, this is in relation to the fourth ventricle. So this is the area of the fourth ventricle. And the lower part of the medulla will be closed. So this is the closed part of the medulla. The midbrain portion will appear in the form of tectum, which is the superior colliculus on both the sides and inferior colliculus on both the sides. So superior and inferior colliculus, this will demarcate the region of the midbrain. This in relation to the upper part of the fourth ventricle, this will be the area of the pons. And the lower part of the fourth ventricle will be in relation to the upper part of the medulla, while the lower part of the medulla will be closed. Now posteriorly, if we see the upper parts, just I've mentioned that if this is the lateral view. Now how the brainstem will appear in a lateral view. So this upper part, this is the midbrain. This is the pons, the ventral part and the dorsal portions. And this is the medulla. So this is the open part of the medulla and followed by the closed part of the medulla. So in relation to the upper part of the medulla and the pons, posteriorly, they are related to the cerebellum, and intervening between them, this is the fourth ventricle. So this is how the brainstem will appear in case of a lateral view. Now there are certain cavities in relation to the brainstem. So we begin with the midbrain first. So this is a lateral view. So this is the midbrain. So you can see the superior colliculus and inferior colliculus behind, and in front this is called as the tegmentum area of the midbrain, or the ventral aspect of the midbrain. Separating two, this is a canal which is called as the central canal of the medulla, or the aqueduct of Sylvius. This aqueduct of Sylvius in the midbrain. This is continuous with the ventricular cavity of the cerebrum. And then if you look in relation to the pons behind, this is the fourth ventricle. And then in relation to the medulla, this upper part of the medulla will be in relation to the fourth ventricle, and in the lower part of the medulla you'll have a central canal similar to the central canal of the spinal cord. And this canal will then continue with the canal of the spinal cord. So this is the central canal in relation to the medulla, which is continuous with spinal cord canal, central canal. This is the area of the fourth ventricle, and this is the area of the cerebral aqueduct, or the aqueduct of Sylvius of midbrain, which is in continuation with the ventricles of the brain. So these canals, just I've told you, inferiorly it is connected with the central canal, continuous with the central canal of spinal cord, and superiorly the aqueduct of Sylvius will be continuous with the third ventricle of the brain. Now there are certain cranial nerves also in relation to the brainstem. So when we start from the first and second cranial nerves are not coming in relation, but from third cranial nerve onwards, you can see all the cranial nerves in relation to the brainstem coming out. So this is the third cranial nerve that you can see, the oculomotor nerve. And this is a thin nerve, which is the trochlear nerve. These two nerves are seen. Then it is followed by the fifth cranial nerve. The fifth cranial nerve you'll be able to see at the level of the pons, nearly at the junction of pons and the middle cerebellar peduncle. This is the cranial nerve fifth. This is followed by the sixth cranial nerve. So this is the sixth cranial nerve, which is at the level of the pontomedullary junction. So the sixth cranial nerve and the seventh and eighth cranial nerve, these three cranial nerves will appear at the pontomedullary junction. This is a pontomedullary junction. The rest of the cranial nerves will be arising from the level of the medulla. So these are 9, 10, 11, and the 12th one more anteriorly it will be appearing. So this is the 12th, and onto the most posterior plane from the medulla are the 9, 10, 11 cranial nerves. So these brainstem have an important role because they are giving attachments to these cranial nerves from 3rd to 12th, and from the midbrain levels are these 3rd and 4th cranial nerve. 5th was arising from pons and from pontomedullary junction, 6, 7, 8, and from medulla 9, 10, 11, 12 cranial nerves were arising. So these cranial nerve nuclei, the nuclei of the cranial nerve are deep inside the brainstem, and their emerging point can be seen visually, grossly outside, emerging from the in relation to the brainstem. The trochlear is the only nerve which will arise from its dorsal aspect and then will come to the ventral aspect. Otherwise, all the cranial nerve will be seen to emerge from the ventral aspect of the brainstem. The cranial nerve 1 and 2 have no attachment onto the brainstem. So this is a tabulation of the same thing, the origin points of all the cranial nerves in relation to the brainstem, which we have just discussed. Now, what are the functions of brainstem? They are actually the passage for ascending and descending tract. So basically connecting the forebrain with the spinal cord. And also it has many important vital centers which are important for the control of consciousness, respiration, and cardiovascular system. So all important vital centers are there in the brainstem. Internally, if you visualize the brainstem, you will find that there are very organized nuclei in the form of the functional columns of the cranial nerves. Functional cranial nerve nuclei, they are arranged as a gray matter nuclei in the brainstem. So starting from the midbrain, you can see the oculomotor nucleus, the Edinger-Westphal nucleus, which is again the component of the oculomotor, and the trochlear. And these nuclei, deep-seated inside the brainstem, will then emerge out through those levels of the midbrain, followed by other cranial nerve nuclei that you will learn in the subsequent lecture of the cranial nerve nuclei. So different nerve nuclei are present at different particular levels. In the white matter, basically white matter, you have descending and ascending tracts which are coming to and from the cerebral cortex, and diffusely arranged reticular formation is present over there. So externally, we have mostly covered all the external feature of the brainstem. So lengthwise, it is 3 centimeter long and 2 centimeter wide, conical in shape, and above we have relation of the pons, and below we have relation of the spinal cord when we are talking about the medulla. Relations will be anteriorly the clivus area and posteriorly the fourth ventricle is separating the medulla from the cerebellum. So I'm talking about the medullary external feature. So anteriorly we had seen, posteriorly if we see this brainstem, there is a stria medullaris in relation to the fourth ventricle. This is a stria medullaris. We'll come in detail to this part again. So posteriorly, this is how it was appearing, and the peduncle area has been cut because the cerebellum has been removed. So this is the area of the superior cerebellar peduncle, and this is the area of middle cerebellar peduncle, which will be visualized from the posterior aspect. And these are the facial colliculus, which over where the facial nerve and the abductor nerve nuclei will be related. This again will be done in detail in the subsequent lectures. So now we come to the medulla, external feature of the medulla. This arrow, red arrow, is onto the ventral aspect of the first picture. This is showing the ventral aspect of the medulla. This is over here, the same picture. So ventrally, in the median plane, you will find a sulcus. This is called as the anterior median sulcus. This anterior median sulcus or fissure, which is on the anterior surface of the medulla, is continuous below with the spinal cord. Spinal cord, again you have a fissure, which is that fissure that is the anterior median fissure. So anterior median fissure of the spinal cord is basically continuing into the anterior median sulcus or fissure of the medulla. If we look into the posterior aspect, this is a dorsal aspect of the medulla. If we look into the posterior aspect of the medulla, we can see on posterior aspect also we have a median sulcus. This is called as a posterior median sulcus, and this is in relation to the closed part. Remember, this is in relation to the closed part of the medulla, because in the open part you can see this is in relation to the fourth ventricle. This is the open part of the medulla. So we are talking about the closed part of the medulla onto which you have a posterior median sulcus, and this will also be continuous with the posterior median sulcus of the spinal cord if you trace it below. So lower part of the medulla is almost in structure similar to the more or less appear similar to the spinal cord. Now, if you see carefully from the lateral, if we go lateral from the anterior median sulcus, there are two swellings on both the sides. So these two swellings are basically the corticospinal tract, which are running down in the form of the occupying the most anterior parts of the medulla, so creating swellings which are called as the pyramidal swelling. And if we see the shape of this pyramid, you can see superiorly they are more enlarged, but as we go down they are diminishing in size. That means at the level of pyramidal decussation, you can see over here the tract 75 to 90% will cross to the opposite side to form the lateral corticospinal tract, and only few 25% remaining fibers will constitute the anterior corticospinal tract. So this is the level of pyramidal decussation, which can be visualized grossly also when you see this is the area of the pyramidal decussation, which will be appreciable grossly also onto the ventral aspect of the medulla. And lateral to this pyramid, you have another swelling which is called as the olive on both the sides. These are the oval swellings lateral to the pyramid, and they contain nucleus which is called as the inferior olivary nucleus. That is why the name is olive. So onto the medulla, this median swellings on both sides of the anterior median sulcus, these are pyramid, and these lateral swellings are the olive. Now, there is one more sulcus if you go beyond the anterior median sulcus, the anterolateral sulcus. The anterolateral sulcus is between the pyramid and olive. So between the pyramid and olive, these two sulcus are there on left and the right side. These are the anterolateral sulcus. The significance is that through the anterolateral sulcus, you have the origin of the rootlets of hypoglossal nerves. You can see, can you see the origin of the hypoglossal nerve? I told you 9, 10, 11, 12 all arise from medulla, but from which point exactly? The 12th arises from the anterolateral sulcus, the sulcus which is between the pyramid and the olive. If you continue this sulcus below, it will be corresponding with the attachment of the rootlets of spinal nerve in case of the spinal cord. So this is that anterolateral sulcus with arrow. Now we talk about the posterolateral sulcus now. So the posterolateral sulcus is over here behind the olive. So between the olive, this is olive, and behind the olive you have the inferior cerebellar peduncle which connects the medulla with the cerebellum. So that is the posterolateral sulcus. So attached to the posterolateral sulcus is the attachment of the rootlets of the 9, 10 and 11th cranial nerves. 9, 10 and 11th cranial nerves from the posterolateral sulcus. The area which is between the posteromedian sulcus, this is the posteromedian sulcus. If from behind, the area between the posteromedian sulcus and the posterolateral sulcus, posteriorly if you see, it will be continuous below with the posterior white column of the spinal cord. So we have seen many continuations in relation to the medulla with the spinal cord. We saw that this fissure was continuous with the fissure of the anterior side of the spinal cord, posterior median fissure of the medulla with the posterior fissure of the spinal cord. Also, the area of posterior white column will be continuous with the area where the medulla we have the posterior median sulcus and the posterolateral sulcus. Now, if we look into the posterior aspect of the medulla, we are talking about the closed part. So in the closed part first, in the closed part, this from this area to this area, this is the closed part of the medulla in which we had the median, posterior median sulcus. So in the lower closed part, which is between the posterior median sulcus and the posterolateral sulcus, we have fasciculus gracilis in the medial aspect and fasciculus cuneatus. Remember, when we were doing these tracts, we did at the level of spinal cord and at the level of medulla, we said that the tracts were ascending up. So just you have to look for these fasciculi. Fasciculi means these tracts, fasciculus gracilis in the medial plane and fasciculus cuneatus in the lateral plane. So they are ascending up from the spinal cord till the level of the lower part of the medulla. Then we said that the fasciculus gracilis and cuneatus, the fibers were ending into the nuclei, gracile nuclei and the cuneate nuclei. So where is the location of gracile nuclei and the cuneate nuclei? They are on either side of the posterior median sulcus. So this fasciculi, these running tracts, will end into this oval kind of a structure on both the sides. These are the two swellings of which are called as the gracile tubercle and cuneate tubercle. Inside the gracile tubercle is the gracile nucleus, and inside the cuneate tubercle are the cuneate nuclei. So externally, the fasciculus gracilis and cuneatus will appear like a longitudinal swelling, and the area of the nuclei will appear in a form of a tubercle, which are called as gracile and cuneate tubercle. So posteriorly, apart from these fasciculi and the tubercles, you have one more structure which is called as a tuber cinereum. This is the area of tuber cinereum, which is between the fasciculus cuneatus and the rootlets of the accessory nerve, spinal accessory nerve. And this is the area of the tuber cinereum where you have the spinal tract of trigeminal nerve and the nucleus of trigeminal nerve at the level of tuber cinereum. This is very important because when you draw the sections, these relations will help you. Now we come to the upper part of the, which is the open part of the medulla. We have completed the closed part of the medulla. Now we talk about the upper open part of the medulla. So in this picture also we can see this was the closed part of the medulla. And now we talk about the upper open part of the medulla, which is in relation to the fourth ventricle. So this is in relation to the fourth ventricle, the upper part, where you can see the stria medullaris also at the junction. And then you can see certain areas over here which is from medial to lateral. If we go, this is the hypoglossal triangle where the hypoglossal nuclei will be related. This is a vagal triangle which is in relation to the vagal nucleus, and this is the vestibular area in relation to the vestibular nucleus. This will be done in detail with the fourth ventricle when you do. Now, connections of the medulla oblongata, because it is related to the cerebellum posteriorly through inferior cerebellar peduncle, it will be connected to the inferior to the cerebellum. It through the pyramidal fibers, it is connected to the cerebrum, and through other and it will be connected to other parts of the brain by the various ascending and the descending tracts. So basically, medulla and brainstem, they are connecting the various areas of the brain, cerebellum and spinal cord. Now we come to the internal features of the medulla. The lowermost part of the medulla, which is just below the pyramidal decussation, the arrangement of fiber is almost similar to the spinal cord. But in the upper portion of the medulla, the arrangement is a little different. So we can see how these areas are different. So we'll see these sections one by one. This is very important and comes in your exam also. You have to draw these sections. So first plane of section is passing through the level of pyramidal decussation. These were the two pyramids, cortical tracts, and you can see this grossly also. You can observe some fibers crossing over. This is the motor decussation or the pyramidal decussation. This is going to appear like this, and this picture you have to draw in your exam if the question comes as draw a transverse section of medulla at the level of pyramidal decussation. Second is just above the level of pyramidal decussation. This is the level of sensory decussation, and this diagram will be represented like this, and this also you must know how to draw. Another section is at the level of the olive. So these are the two at the level of inferior olivary nucleus, at the level of olive. If the section is made, this is how the section will appear. So we go with the first section, which is the transverse section of medulla at the level of the pyramidal decussation. So these are the pyramidal decussation levels anteriorly and posteriorly. This is through the ventral aspect. It is more clearer. Posteriorly, you have to just imagine this plane, but anteriorly it will be more evident. The anterior aspect, through the anterior ventral aspect of the medulla, the pyramidal decussation level. So at this level, now when you draw the cut section, imagine what all structure you can draw from anterior to posterior, because you know how to draw the spinal cord, but you don't know how to draw the brainstem. So anteriorly, the first structure that you will form ventrally in the median plane, that would be that would be the anteromedian sulcus, followed by a swelling. That swelling will be the pyramid swelling, and then you will draw another sulcus, which is the anterolateral sulcus, and so on you will go. So let us see how it is drawn. So this is the anterior, and this is the posterior aspect of this section of medulla. And before you draw this, you have to make an arrow denoting the anterior and the posterior and the right and the left areas of the medulla. So now let us see this side. This is the anteromedian sulcus. So you have to draw the medulla in such a way that you create a sulcus over here. Then go from here, this point to the lateral point. These are the two. On both the side, you have to draw what? You have to draw the two pyramids. These are the two pyramids that you have to draw. Then this is the outline of the medulla. You go from lateral then to the posterior most. Now, while drawing from the posterior most aspect, what will you draw first? First, you will form this depression. This depression is the posterior-median sulcus right here. And from the posterior-median sulcus, then you draw these two raised areas from medial to lateral. What are these two raised areas? Now let us see over here in this picture, because while drawing this picture, you should remember the gross picture first. So posterior median sulcus ke baad, these two longitudinally raised swellings, these were the fasciculus gracilis, containing the dorsal column, the fasciculus gracilis part of the dorsal column. So on both the side of the posterior median sulcus, what are you going to draw? You are going to draw the fasciculus gracilis. Then there is again an area separating the two fasciculus gracilis from the another fasciculus. This is the fasciculus cuneatus. So lateral to the fasciculus gracilis, you can see this is the area of the fasciculus cuneatus that is to be drawn on both sides. Then we had talked about the area of the tuber cinereum, where what was related the spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve and its tract. So this is the spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve, which is quite extensive. When I showed you the diagram of the all cranial nerve related, nuclei related, this the trigeminal nuclei was having extensive origin, and behind it, this is the tract of the spinal tract of trigeminal nerve. This is to be drawn. So from posterior aspect, from medial to lateral, you have to draw the fasciculus gracilis, fasciculus cuneatus, and then spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve. Now this is the central canal or the central gray matter, because it is still the closed part of the medulla. So this will be a central canal in the center, and this is the gray matter, the central gray matter. So just compare this cut section with the cut section of spinal cord that you all know how to draw. So this adjacent to this area, this will be the gray matter, and this will correspond to the ventral gray horn of the spinal cord. So this is a ventral gray column, again seen in the medulla as well. But what you can appreciate is the posterior column, posterior gray column, which is there in the spinal cord, is not evident here. Why? Because of the this movement of the tracts, corticospinal tract. Now another thing that you, after making this outline and making these important structure, then you have to place these tracts, which we have already covered during ascending and descending, to place these tracts in the section. Now we'll do the decussation first. So pyramid, remember these were the pyramid, corticospinal tract, and the corticospinal tract, 75 to 90% of fibers, they cross to the opposite side. So this is what this is, these on two sides, these are the lateral corticospinal tract. So this from the pyramid, corticospinal tract, the portions which 75 to 90% of fibers which cross to the opposite side contributed to formation of, so these are the two lateral corticospinal tract, and the rest of the fibers will continue into the same side as anterior corticospinal tract. So by this thing in mind, now let us see histologically also the same sections have been made, so you can correspond the same picture. So you can see that how the ventral horn are appearing and how the areas of fasciculus gracilis and fasciculus cuneatus is appearing over here. And over here, these are the spinal nucleus and tract of cranial nerve fifth, that is a trigeminal nerve. This is how it will appear histologically along with the central canal. So pyramidal decussation, just now I have described pyramidal decussation. So pyramidal decussation is basically the transitional zone between the spinal cord and medulla. So the ventral gray horn, this is a ventral gray horn, they are going to be traversed obliquely by these bundles of fibers, pyramidal fibers that have crossed to form the lateral corticospinal tract. The dorsal gray horn, which should be over here, the dorsal gray horn of the spinal cord is basically replaced by what? They are replaced by the spinal nucleus and the tract of trigeminal nerve. And then you have a few more nuclear, the gracile and the gracile and the cuneate fasciculi. The fasciculus cuneatus and fasciculus gracilis is over there in the posterior aspect. This is how they will appear. Now the nuclei, which is the gray matter at the level of the pyramidal decussation, but all structure you can see the beginning of the nucleus, because over here the fasciculus cuneatus and gracilis are actually beginning to terminate into the nucleus. So the receding levels of the both the nuclei will be start to appear, and the caudal end of the nucleus of spinal tract of trigeminal nerve and its tract will be seen. Below it is continuous with the tract of the leisure of the spinal cord, this trigeminal nerve and its tract. Remember, we did it in the spinal cord, this tract. Rest of the majority of the fibers, that is 75 to 95% that were crossing to the opposite side, they are contributing to the formation of this lateral corticospinal tract, because they are turning backwards and laterally, and they are reaching the white column, right? So from here, the pyramidal decussation will descend down in the form of the lateral corticospinal tract. This we have already discussed. Now the gray matter fibers, the fibers that are passing through the gray matter, They are in continuity between the anterior gray column and the gray matter surrounding the central canal. So they are the continuity between the anterior gray and the surrounding central canal is now separated. You can see the anterior gray and the gray matter surrounding the central canal, they are separated with each other, unlike in the spinal cord, because of this movement of the fibers, corticospinal, the pyramidal decussation or the motor decussation. So because of this pyramidal decussation, what has happened is there has been displacement of the central canal and the central gray matter into the more posterior plane. Because of these, so not only they have separated the central gray from the anterior gray, but also they have pushed the central canal into more posterior plane and the central gray also into the more posterior plane. So the detached anterior gray column will consist of the motor neuron for the origin of the, so this portion which has been detached, this will contain the origin of the spinal accessory nerve and the supraspinal nucleus of the first cervical nerve. This we have already discussed how the lateral corticospinal and anterior corticospinal tract forms after the decussation. So this is how we have completed the transverse section of the medulla, and then the placement of the tracts you have to, because it will be the similar in fashion, like dorsal spinocerebellar here, then the ventral spinocerebellar, the spinotectal, lateral spinothalamic, anterior spinothalamic, and spino-olivary. On one side you can draw these ascending tracts the same way that how we have drawn in the spinal cord, and to the opposite side you can draw these tracts, descending tracts, the rubrospinal, the olivospinal, and the medial longitudinal fasciculus over here. And on adjacent sides, because everywhere you have on the lateral aspect, you have the reticular formation. So you have to mark this reticular formation. So I think you will be able to draw this particular diagram, and I've explained it enough so that it will help you, the explanation will help you to draw this particular diagram for exams. And before your interactive session, you must draw these diagrams, and you should come prepared with all the diagrams that I'm showing. Now, transverse section through the sensory decussation level, which we said that just above the pyramidal decussation is the level of the sensory decussation in the at the level of the medulla. So posteriorly and anteriorly, this is corresponding with this cross picture. And what are you going to see in the sensory decussation? So in the sensory decussation also, you are going to form the same thing, the anterior median sulcus and the posterior median fissure, and these raised elevations for the fasciculus gracilis and the nucleus gracilis and cuneatus, and the anterior swellings for the pyramid, that is to be drawn. And the basic tracts descending and ascending on both the sides you should be able to draw with the tuber cinereum area, that is a nucleus of tract of trigeminal and its tract and its nucleus, that is to be drawn. So what is different from that we'll see from the pyramidal decussation, what was different. So this is how it will appear histologically also, that various pyramidal and the cuneate nucleus, gracile nuclei, they are appearing more prominent at this particular level, because as you go above, these nuclei will be becoming more prominent. So you can see the fasciculus area has shortened and the nuclei are becoming more prominent now at the level of sensory decussation. So from the posterior median sulcus, this is the area of nucleus gracilis and nucleus cuneatus, and at the periphery you can see the fasciculus gracilis and the fasciculus cuneatus on both the sides, followed by trigeminal nerve nuclei and its tract. Anteriorly, these are the pyramid. So over here, because at this level the pyramid has still not, the corticospinal tract has still not decussated, so you are going to form big pyramidal swellings over here. Now this part we have already done in detail during the ascending tract. So this was the fibers of fasciculus gracilis, they were terminating over here. So at this particular level, at the nucleus gracilis level, right? And from this, the fibers were turning ventromedially. Remember, motor decussation was going dorsolaterally, whereas the sensory decussation will go into the more anterior and medial plane. So this fibers from the nucleus gracilis, these fibers which are turning ventromedially, these are called as the internal arcuate fibers. And once they turn ventromedially, they occupy more anterior plane, and this the tract that is created, this is called as the medial lemniscus. And the fibers which were present more medially, that is the sacral fibers, will settle more anteriorly over here. And the fibers from the cuneatus, the internal arcuate fibers, will cross ventromedially and will settle more posteriorly over here. So this is how you have to draw this diagram. So let us see what all gray matter arrangement is seen at this level. So the nucleus gracilis in the medial plane, and laterally this is the nucleus cuneatus that you will see. There is one more nucleus, accessory cuneate nucleus. Remember cuneo-cerebellar pathway we did along with the posterior spinocerebellar, which was coming from the accessory cuneate nucleus. This is that accessory cuneate nucleus which is attached to this cuneate nucleus. Then this is the nucleus of spinal tract of trigeminal nerve that you have to draw. Then the nucleus ambiguus. At this particular level, you have to draw this nucleus ambiguus. Lowest part of the inferior olivary nucleus, this you have to draw, because the inferior olivary nucleus is more pronounced in the upper part. Over here you will find the inferior part of the inferior olivary nucleus that you have to draw additionally over here. Then you have to draw the arcuate nucleus at the level of the anteriormost level of the pyramid. Then you have to draw the hypoglossal nucleus. This is the hypoglossal nucleus, which is adjacent to the central canal in this central gray matter, hypoglossal nucleus. Followed in this order, lateral to the hypoglossal nucleus will be this dorsal motor nucleus of the vagus. And then lastly, you have to draw this nucleus of solitary tract. So this order should be maintained: the hypoglossal, vagal, and then the nucleus of solitary tract. Remember, when we were doing the posterior aspect of the medulla, this part we saw this vagal triangle and this area of the hypoglossal triangle. So this corresponds with that area. So these are the gray matter arrangement at the level of the sensory decussation. So nucleus of gracilis and cuneatus, we know they are lying deep to the fasciculus gracilis and cuneatus. And where they were located in the form of a tubercle, raised tubercle. They appear onto the posterior aspect of the medulla, and they are detached from the central gray. This is a central gray matter. They are detached from the central gray matter. They are gray matter nuclei, but detached from the central gray of the spinal of the medulla. Now, this is the accessory cuneate nucleus, which appears dorsolateral to the nucleus cuneatus. Next is the nucleus of spinal tract of trigeminal nerve, nucleus of spinal tract of trigeminal nerve, and its tract, which is ventrolateral to the cuneate nucleus. Then the other thing that you have to draw additionally over here is the nucleus ambiguus, which is in the area of reticular formation. Remember, in the previous picture, we marked this area as the reticular formation. So in this area of reticular formation, you have the nucleus ambiguus, and this is medial to the nucleus of spinal tract of trigeminal. Because I'm telling you again and again these relations, because while drawing, you should be careful where to draw the nucleus ambiguus. It should be medial to the nucleus of spinal tract of trigeminal nerve. Another important thing that you should not miss drawing is the inferior olivary nucleus, the lowermost part of the inferior olivary nucleus. In the higher level, you will see all the portions of the inferior olivary nucleus, but right here you will be drawing this just posterior to the pyramid. You should be able to draw this. Remember, this was behind the pyramid. This was the area of olive containing the inferior olivary nucleus. So that is why just behind the pyramid you have to draw this inferior olivary nucleus. So whatever knowledge of gross you have to apply it over here for diagram of transverse section. So the gray matter mass on the anterior aspect of the pyramid, this is the arcuate nucleus that you have to additionally draw. Now we come to the central gray area. So this nucleus arrangement that I've told you in this order: the hypoglossal, vagal, and then the nucleus of solitary tract. So we begin with the medial most structure, that is the hypoglossal nucleus. This is within the central gray matter surrounding the central canal, and it's just ventral. Remember, you have to draw it ventral to the central canal. Next thing you have to draw is little behind it is the dorsal nucleus of vagus. dorsally and lateral to the hypoglossal nucleus. These are all the origin point, the cranial nerve nuclei that we were discussing in the commencement of our lecture. Nucleus of solitary tract. This is dorsal to the nucleus of vagus. After making all these, now let us see what are the white matter arrangement at this particular level. So we have completed the gray matter nuclei. All these were the gray matter nuclei. Now we come to the white matter arrangement. So white matter is the fasciculus gracilis and fasciculus cuneatus that you have to draw as you have drawn it in the previous thing also. Then the medial longitudinal bundle, right? Medial longitudinal bundle, and then the rest of the fibers. I'll come into details of each one of them. Start beginning with the fasciculus gracilis and cuneatus, which is lying just posterior to the nuclei of this. So what are they containing? This, by our previous knowledge, we know that they are the fibers of the first order neurons, remember, of the tracts, which were carrying the proprioception and touch, localization, discrimination. So they are all those fibers of dorsal column they were carrying, and the fibers from the lower half of the body were terminating where into the gracile nuclei, and fibers from the upper body were terminating into the cuneate nuclei. And so basically the cuneate and the gracile nuclei, they are the neurons present over here are the second order neurons. So this in this diagram, this dot is basically the second order neuron, and its axon, which is turning ventromedially, is the internal arcuate fiber, which is crossing to the opposite side. This cross is called as the sensory decussation. The sensory decussation, the internal arcuate fibers decussate in the median plane. And what is the arrangement of fibers? Again, you know this arrangement, just we have discussed right now. So when they arrange themselves into the medial lemniscus, the arrangement is similar. The sacral fibers or the lower body parts, they are represented more anteriorly over here into the medial lemniscus, the somatotrophy that we had discussed in the last lecture. So medial lemniscus, the body representation is feet represented anteriorly and head represented posteriorly. Remember this, right? And from here, the medial lemniscus, the fibers will terminate where? Into the third order neuron, which were there in the thalamus. If you see this picture from the previous class, you will remember these fibers, axons, were the fibers of the first order neuron from the dorsal root ganglia, and then they were synapsing with this nucleus neurons present over in the nucleus gracilis and in the nucleus cuneatus. So this neuron is the second order neuron which crossed to the opposite side. The sacral fibers or from the lower body settled onto the anterior plane, and the cervical fibers or the upper part of the body settled over the posterior plane, posterior part of the medial lemniscus. So remember this relation, you will remember everything. Sacral, lumbar, thoracic, cervical in the gracile and the cuneate nuclear part, and in the medial lemniscus from anterior to posterior. This is the order, the same order from anterior to posterior, and this is the same order from medial to lateral. Now we come to the white matter arrangement, the medial longitudinal bundle, that is the bundle which is lying posterior to the medial lemniscus. This is the thing that you have to draw, the medial longitudinal bundle, which is the upward continuation of the anterior intersegmental tract. It is consist of the ascending and descending fibers which connects various cranial nerve nuclei like third, fourth, fifth, sixth and eighth cranial nerve nuclei with each other. So this is the medial longitudinal bundle. Posterior external arcuate fibers which begin from the accessory cuneate nuclei, they are also present, and they are basically connected to the cerebellum via the ipsilateral cerebellar peduncle. Remember, we did the cuneo-cerebellar tract, we are talking about that. So the same impulses of the spinocerebellar tract proprioception is carried through the posterior external arcuate fiber emerging from the accessory cuneate nucleus. Anterior external arcuate fibers which begins from the this arcuate nucleus, which is, what are these arcuate nucleus? Basically they are the displaced pontine nuclei. The afferent fibers comes from the cerebral cortex, and the efferent will go to the opposite half of the cerebellum through inferior cerebellar peduncle. So these fibers are the anterior external arcuate fibers. Stria medullaris, we talked about the stria medullaris when we were doing that posteriorly. This aspect of stria medullaris is evident onto the posterior aspect of the medulla. These stria are the fibers from the arcuate nucleus which pass dorsally through the substance of medulla, and they reach the floor of fourth ventricle. From midline fibers run under the ependyma to reach the inferior cerebellar peduncle to the opposite side. So visibly as seen onto the floor of the fourth ventricle, these are the fibers of stria medullaris. Spinal tract of trigeminal nerve. Nucleus we have covered, so we are talking about the tract, the white matter. They are lying superficial to the nucleus of trigeminal nerve onto the surface of the medulla, and this is between the fasciculus cuneatus and the posterior spinocerebellar tract. Now we come to the nuclei in the central gray matter. The tractus solid, nucleus of tractus solitarius. This is a sensory tract associated with cranial nerve. Remember, cranial nerve 7, 9, and 10. They are very important because they carry two basic modalities: the special sensation of taste from tongue, palate, and epiglottis. So taste sensation is carried through this nucleus of tractus solitarius, and from the tractus solitarius, which is the tract from the nucleus or tractus solitarius, and general sensation from the viscera of pharynx, gastrointestinal tract through 9th and 10th cranial nerve. So you can see this taste is for the 7th cranial nerve, and 9th and 10th. We're carrying general sensation from the viscera through tractus solitarius, which is coming from the nucleus of solitary tract. Now, so the rest of the white matter are the anterior, posterior spinocerebellar and the anterior spinocerebellar. Similarly, you have to draw, and then the ascending tracts like anterior spinothalamic, lateral anterior spinothalamic, and the lateral spinothalamic tract that you have to draw. And once you are you well versed with these tracts placement, you will be able to place it. The rubrospinal, vestibulospinal, olivospinal. These tracts has to be placed, and anterior most you have to draw the corticospinal tract, the pyramids, along with this arcuate nucleus. Reticular formation, this was the area of the reticular formation, and here are the scattered nerve cells and fibers, and this is, you have to draw posterolateral to the, in relation to the pyramid throughout the brainstem. So we are done with the two important sections that were the sections at the sensory decussation. You should be able to explain the sensory decussation in this picture. You should be able to explain all the gray matter nuclei, the white matter fibers at both the planes. So these two pictures are very important: sensory decussation and pyramidal decussation. Now you should also know about the level of olive section at the level of olive. So at the level of olive, very prominently seen will be the inferior olivary nucleus and all the components of inferior olivary complex, that is the dorsal accessory olivary nucleus, the inferior olivary nucleus, and the medial accessory olivary nucleus. Inferior olivary complex will be visible at this plane, and again the pyramid and arcuate nucleus from the anterior part. Now what is different over here that we'll see? Obviously in the sensory decussation has already taken place. So at this higher plane, you will see the medial lemniscus. In the more midline, in the para-median plane, you are going to see all these structures, which are medial lemniscus, the tectospinal tract, the medial longitudinal fasciculus, and the hypoglossal and dorsal vagal nucleus. In this order, you have to draw in the para-median plane. Into the lateral plane, what extra has come is these vestibular nuclei, the inferior cerebellar peduncle, which connects the medulla to the cerebellum, and the cochlear nuclei, along with this inferior olivary nuclear complex that you have to draw. So olives ventrally will be seen, and posteriorly the lower part of the fourth ventricle dorsally. Dorsally you can see this is the area of the fourth floor of the fourth ventricle, because this is the open in relation to the open part of the medulla. So this area over here, this blank area, is the fourth ventricle. So you do not find any central canal. Remember, you cannot find any central canal because this is the open part of the medulla. So you see the fourth ventricle, and the central gray matter is spreading over the entire ventricular floors. This is the ventricular floor. So the gray matter, which was more centrally placed, little bit displaced posteriorly, is now displaced almost posteriorly to the ventricular floor. Then you see these hypoglossal nucleus, the dorsal vagal nucleus, and the nucleus of tractus solitarius. So these are the nuclear columns in the central, in the gray matter, which has been shifted to the ventricular floor more to the posterior aspect. Remember, in all picture you have to draw the, I missed to made that arrows denoting the directions. Vestibular nuclei. Now, as you go little lateral into the ventricular floor, you will find the vestibular nuclei. Caudal ends of medial and inferior vestibular nuclei will be seen. Then the next thing, which is a new thing that you have to draw, is the cochlear nuclei, the ventral and the dorsal cochlear nuclei on the ventral and dorsal aspect of inferior cerebellar peduncle. So this another structure that you have to draw is the inferior cerebellar peduncle over here. Then the spinal nucleus and tract of trigeminal, that is shifted more inner side because of this inferior cerebellar peduncle. So you have to draw it ventrolateral to the inferior cerebellar peduncle. Nucleus of ambiguous in relation to the reticular formation area, and this over here, this is related to the fibers of glossopharyngeal, vagal and accessory nerve as described earlier. Olivary nucleus, the inferior olivary nucleus complex will be seen. This is the inferior olivary nucleus. The dorsal accessory olivary nucleus, which is a small nucleus, which is dorsomedial to the accessory olivary nucleus, and this medial accessory nucleus, which is a small lamina between the medial lemniscus and inferior olivary nucleus. Arcuate nucleus will be appearing similar. Inferior cerebellar peduncle, which is forming all the fibers of dorsal spinocerebellar and olivocerebellar tracts. Ventral spinocerebellar peduncle, ventral to the inferior cerebellar peduncle, not the peduncle but the tract, ventral spinocerebellar. You can see the dorsal spinocerebellar tract is now through the inferior cerebellar peduncle. They're passing through the inferior cerebellar peduncle, so you have to make it merged with it. Ascending tracts. The ascending tracts, in the similar fashion, descending tracts you will place here also. The corticospinal tracts, pyramids that you have to place. Medial lemniscus, this is the new thing which has arrived, which is into the more paramedian plane, followed by the tectospinal tract and the medial longitudinal fasciculus, just posterior to the pyramid in the paramedian position. You have to draw these three structures in the white matter. And the gray matter we have already discussed with the ventricular floor, the hypoglossal, dorsal nucleus vagus and solid nucleus of solitary tract. This we have done the inferior olivary nuclear complexes and the connections. We already know how in the tracts we did the connections. So now we come to the applied aspect of the medulla. So we now know all the structures which are there in the medulla. So lateral medullary or Wallenberg syndrome. In this, the lateral area of the medulla is affected. So we know what all structures are there in the over here. So you have the vestibular nuclei over here. You have the nucleus of tractus solitarius. You have the spinothalamic tract. You have inferior cerebellar peduncle. You have the nucleus ambiguous over here. You have the lateral spinothalamic tract. So all these things, when injured, are going to put its effect on all these tracts. So you should be able to demarcate for the lateral medullary syndrome these all areas and see which all tracts and structures are affected, and the symptoms of those syndrome will be in that order. So starting with the vestibular nuclei first. This was the vestibular nuclei. So vestibular nuclei is involved in the equilibrium. So what will happen? Vertigo, vomiting, nystagmus. These are the features of the injury to the vestibular nuclei. Inferior cerebellar peduncle. The next was the inferior cerebellar peduncle. So if inferior cerebellar peduncle goes, there will be the ataxia will happen, right? The proprioception will be lost, so ataxia will happen. Then nucleus of tractus solitarius. So because of that, what will happen? This was carrying the taste sensation. So loss of taste sensation. The patient will come with loss of taste sensation. Then very important thing was the control, central control, the lateral spinothalamic tract. So loss of pain and temperature because of the involvement of the lateral spinothalamic tract. This over here was the lateral spinothalamic tract. So the loss of pain and temperature onto the opposite side of the body. So contralateral loss of pain and temperature the patient will present with. There are certain sympathetic tract or descending autonomic fibers also, so it will lead to the Horner syndrome. Now, nucleus ambiguous. So because of the nucleus ambiguous, there will be dysphagia, hoarseness of voice, because all those cranial nerves are involved. So nucleus ambiguous ki wajah se dysphagia, that means difficulty in swallowing, and hoarseness of voice will appear in the patient. So these are the symptoms of lateral medullary syndrome. Now, medial medullary syndrome. Now, this is the area which is affected with the medial medullary syndrome, which is involving in the paramedian region. So in this area, there will be the tracts that will be involved will be the paramedian. में हमने क्या क्या देखा था? From ventral to dorsal, if we go, the ventral most area was the pyramid. Then was the on to both the sides there was the medial lemniscus, which is carrying the proprioception, touch, fine touch, discrimination, localization, vibration, sensations, right? And then you have the paralysis of the hypoglossal nucleus. So the tongue will deviate to the side of, there will be deviation of the tongue to the same side of the lesion. Ipsilateral deviation of the tongue will be seen because of the hypoglossal nucleus involvement. And because of the involvement of pyramid, there will be contralateral hemiplegia, paralysis to the opposite side of the body. And because of the involvement of medial lemniscus, there will be loss of sensation of position, discrimination, discriminatory to touch, and conscious proprioception. So these are all symptoms which will happen in the medial medullary syndrome. So so in today's lecture, we have completed the external feature of the brain stem and the medulla with the three cut sections, important cut sections of the medulla at the level of pyramidal decussation or motor decussation, at the level of sensory decussation, and at the level of olive. And we did two important clinical aspects, that is the lateral medullary syndrome and medial medullary syndrome. So revise all these diagrams, these three cut sections of the medulla. So this is again the last slide, which I've already explained the hypoglossal nerve paralysis and the paralysis of the pyramids and the medial lemniscus. This is the explanatory basis for the same of the medial medullary syndrome. Thank you.